Well, thank you, Brett, for being here. I'm very excited to pick your brain on founder VC relationships. I guess my first question, it's a little bit philosophical, but also practical. As a VC, what are you selling to founders in exchange for a piece of their company?
I mean, I think fundamentally it's always going to come back to capital. Like, we are capital partners, which means both, like, we're giving them the money to use to run their business, but also we are in the business of helping them with capital through their entire life cycle. And I think that the history of venture has been such that capital feels kind of commodity, so let's like do some other stuff so it feels like we can value add from there. I think there's a lot of different takes on exactly what that means. And like from the initialized lens, like it's first and foremost just be good like partners who understand people and like how they work and how they're motivated and realize that like a lot of the value in ventures is grounded in founders themselves, and so supporting them as people and being, like having collegial relationships is very valuable. And then there's a bunch of stuff you can do on top of that that's just like day-to-day useful.
Speaking of this whole value add situation, I'm really fascinated by the, let's call it founder VC fit, like the process of finding that. Yeah. How do you do that? How do you pitch yourself to founders, especially if they have many options when they're fundraising?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it starts with the pitch itself, really. Like, I think that like we pride ourselves on making pitches somewhat collaborative, right? It should really like, we're going to meet with these people a lot after we give them money. And so if the first meeting doesn't feel something like what that ongoing relationship is going to look like, then that's probably like a negative signal from their perspective. And I guess like tactically, it's like just try to be positive and hopeful. I think that especially for early stage venture, like an orientation towards like, what if this goes right? What does it look like? That's like what founders need and like the kind of thinking they need on their side. And then I think credibility when it comes to what they're working on, both from a product perspective or an engineering perspective, like goes a long way.
Okay, but like every VC ever says that. So how do you differentiate yourself? And I'm especially curious, like, do you think that it really comes down to the founder connecting with a particular partner rather than sort of the broader brand?
I mean, it's like a pretty broad and like relatively ad hoc question. I think like at a high level, yes. I think that there's a lot of reasons founders pick venture capitalists. One, certainly like brand is doing a lot of heavy lifting because it turns out that once a brand has a certain stature, the rest of the ecosystem cares, and that's relevant to a startup in a lot of ways, both in terms of like who they're able to hire, downstream capital fundraising needs. And then on top of that, I think that there's a little bit of like founder investor fit in terms of just having rapport and communicating well, because that's going to be like crucial to the relationship as it goes. There's also some semblance often of like market investor fit, because like a lot of what you're doing, especially early on, is helping founders see around corners and anticipate things that they might not have otherwise intuited being heads down building things. And so that's where, like personally, like I miss being a founder. I miss like the depth of just focusing on one thing all the time. But I begrudgingly accept that like some horizontal knowledge of seeing a lot of things across a lot of instances in a given sector or across industries gives you some pattern matches on things that founders should be thinking about as they build their business.
Okay, so you've found that fit with a founder, you've invested in their company. How do you think of them? Do you think of them as like family as part of your portfolio, or like what's your attitude?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it varies like pretty wildly across venture capitalists, and in fact, something that like I think I was pretty fortunate at the companies I founded and the types of investors we worked with, because I've been in investor contexts since I joined Initialized, where I'm kind of like I'm like shocked always, like why are you treating these people like noobs that just walked out of the woods? You just gave them millions of dollars. Like what actually is going on in this dynamic that you think they're morons suddenly? So I think that like what we pride ourselves on is like collegial kind of peer like relationships. Like we're seed stage investors, so we are neither going to be funding the Series A, nor on the board in an official governance capacity, which I think gives us a lever to be like soft advisors who can engender a lot more trust, because we don't need to be managed like a lot of the investors on the cap table. Like we feel kind of like once we're in, we're on the same side as you, and so I think that that drives a lot. Like, and I think it comes from like I'm grounded in like still this conflict of like, you know, like founders are the important part, right? Like, and like I just like, you know, like 3 or 4 years in, I could have some cognitive dissonance about being a venture capitalist, but now I emphatically am one. But I still have that belief, and so like you have to treat people like you understand that, right? Like the business, like if you don't think that the founders are the most important part, especially early on, you've kind of already lost.
Yeah, you mentioned once you've invested, you're on, you know, their team now. Founder friendly has been sort of a term floating around the industry for a long time, and some firms take that in particular ways, like they're always voting their shares with the founders, things like that, or they, you know, bow out when the founder is no longer leading the company. How do you interpret that?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think it can be, it gets pretty complex, and there's like a lot of kind of, you know, like facile versions of that. I think that, I guess like, and something I'm open in speaking to founders about, I think that the type of really, like, it's a mutual respect relationship, but ultimately, like, there is an economic relationship going on as well, right? Like, it's not our money, like, that we're investing in the startup, it's not their money as individual founders, right? There's like this pool of capital that, and like oftentimes ties back to like children's hospitals and the like, right? So like we have this baseline stewardship relationship with the money itself. So what that means, I think, in practice, Initialized is like, we can't always give people more money, and I think that there are times when people interpret founder friendliness as a willingness to give more capital, like whenever they want it, and so I try to like undercut that interpretation. But we can't always answer your emails and get on the phone and hear what you're going through, and even when things are going poorly. And I think that part is like rarer than again I expected, switching from founder to VC.
Tell me more about navigating and balancing sort of this fiduciary duty that you have to your LPs and generating returns, and it's a business. And then also, you know, you have this relationship with the founder, they're doing something extremely difficult, you want to support them. How do you make decisions?
Yeah, I think that, so, I mean, the hard part is that the type of people that are good founders are also the type of people who don't really like quitting, right? And so, especially in seed stage investing, it can be a little different at later stages, because if a Series B company runs out of capital after they found product market fit, then it's like very highly value destructive, right? They had a business, something went wrong, and just for lack of more money, it can collapse. Oftentimes, seed stage is like pre-product market fit. It's not deterministic. It can take any amount of time, and it's often like if you haven't found product market fit yet, the amount of runway you have is really just a lever for running more hypotheses. And so I think that the hard part becomes when you have a founder that's like, well, like we just had a little more, if we could go a little farther. Like you can always say that, and there's a heavy correlation between running out of money now and running out of money again later, as it turns out. So I think that how we handle that situations is we just have an honest dialogue. We have an orientation where we're like, if you're still high conviction, we want to believe and we want to find a way to like figure this out. But if we're so many years into a seed stage startup, it hasn't found product market fit, like we should probably have a dialogue not just about like our capital, but like your opportunity cost and like why you don't like the miracle of the industry is you can stop and start over and no one cares, and so like take advantage of that. Is that how you frame it to them? No, it's about you.
It's probably a little gentler than that, but like it is like that. I think it's more like questions, right? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, why do you think you still need to keep going? Are you holding on because you think that you're like a tweak away from this actually inflecting, or are you holding on because you're scared of admitting that this failed? Yeah. And if it's the latter, like you don't need to be. I'm not upset. Like no one else is going to be upset. Like let's do what's best for everybody, including you and your time.
And, it's not always like in a founder, like, like pivoting heavily like many years into with a raggedy cap table isn't always in the founder's interest either. So like I appreciate when they do it and they try to bring their existing investors along. But, like, I don't know, so just kind of, I think it starts with an honest dialogue about like what their goals are and what they care about.
Okay, so you've invested in this company, it's doing well, it's growing, it's raising more money, there's more investors coming into the cap table. As a seed investor, do you ever like get sad that they have new best friends now?
That's a great question. No, I do not. I welcome other strong capital partners around the table, first of all, and second, like, I think that like the firm and even my skill set is best for coaching people who are kind of going from zero to product market fit, and so getting them other advisors who make more sense for the stage they're at, and like hopefully if I'm doing my job right, like we're still texting all the time. I just don't necessarily. It's not high leverage for them to be meeting with me for an hour every month when they have an org that's getting into the tens or hundreds of people.
Okay, so you enjoy being the empty nesters, I guess.
Yeah. Well, because there's also a capacity constraint, right? We're funding new startups as well.
Right. One thing I really want to ask you about. So Initialized has gone through a lot of leadership changes over the years. Mm-hmm. The 3 original founders have left slowly. In the fall, you guys did some cuts to your investing team. Tell me about managing the relationships with the portfolio founders through those transitions.
Yeah.
Especially because, maybe some of them had direct working relationships with folks who left.
Yeah. I think, the first thing is a lot of the people that are no longer actively investing are still supporting the portfolio. So we've done our best to keep people having the same point of contact where they can. But then again, and then the second thing is just, again, like kind of honest conversations, right? Like talk to the founders that are impacted, see exactly how they see it's affecting them, and talk through, how else we can help. I think that it really helps that from the outset, we're like a fairly team-oriented approach to support. So pretty much everyone in the portfolio has more than one contact that they're like relatively close with. But it's never ideal, and it's actually been. And I think it's especially the recent years. We've especially been sensitive to it because, like, as we talk to our founders, we're not the only ones, and so there's a few instances where they're just kind of like, man, again, like there's a little bit of fatigue because it's like a few firms have done this because there's been this rapid reshuffling over the last few years.
Yeah.
But again, I think it comes back to open, candid, respectful relationships in the end.
We have to talk about AI because what's a startup conference without AI? So Mark Andreessen famously recently said that early stage VC is one of the few jobs that's immune from being taken from AI. Do you feel like that human aspect of being an investor is, do you feel like you have to keep selling that to people? Because people have like AI girlfriends and boyfriends and friends and AI pets. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I guess there's like a couple aspects to it, right? Like, because like on the, fundamentally like venture exists as like, outside of just the capital, like the first, the first incarnations are mainly driven by the strength of having someone who went and made a bunch of relationships outside of the scope of what a given startup founder could do, right? And so I think like relationship maintenance and networking are still like, like fundamentally like not in the realm of AI, I guess, until like we start thinking of AI as people or something such. But I think that on the founder facing side, like, yeah, like it's hard. Those do seem like that's durably personal relationships. It's kind of the point of the thing. So disintermediating with AI, I don't know if it makes sense. On the other side of like, how do we pick and like, is venture capitalist analysis better than AI on some time horizon? I don't know. Who knows?
Okay, but do you wish you could have like AI for customer support for founders? Like, I don't want to talk to them at 2 in the morning. They can talk to this AI.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting question, because it's even like we're in this intermediate phase where it's like, like they asked me a question, I could just like drop that into ChatGPT and like proxy it back through, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it feels very awkward and weird to be like, did you ask ChatGPT? Because it's like I'm supposed to have answers here, right? Like, so I think we're still in a phase where there are a lot of jobs where like a lot of the knowledge still lives in people's heads, so it's like not sufficiently represented by the corpus of the web, and so it's still useful to ask people like me for advice. I could see that going away, and I definitely think that in that like directionally, some of the things we help people reason through being done by AI systems seems pretty plausible and hopefully additive and not
replacing you?
Replace it,
yeah. Let's take a little bit of a bigger picture view. What would you say are like the main or most important ingredients to having a thriving and long, enduring founder-VC relationship?
Yeah, I think that I don't know. It's going to sound repetitive to some things I've said before, but like I think like good communication. It's like any relationship, right? Like what makes long-term relationships work?
Yeah.
Like mutual respect and high quality communication. And like, you know, hopefully like we have advice that is helpful. Like empirically, it turns out we told them to do something and they're like, oh yeah, that made sense. That seems to also have people stick around and keep asking us questions.
That's it? It's that simple? Just communicate and respect each other?
Yeah. And I think that like, yeah. What else will there be?
I don't know. You tell me. You're the expert. I'm just asking questions here.
Yeah. It's relationships broadly.
Okay. Kind of a different tone. What is the worst thing a founder has ever done to like destroy your relationship with them? You don't have to name names. You can, but you don't have to.
I tend to be circumspect about things that happen to us, but yeah, I don't know. We just have like run-of-the-mill bad. Not run-of-the-mill, but like, you know, like you could imagine. Like
casual
people
fraud,
running
you know?
their companies and doing, you know, things like outrageous like HR violations is like pretty frustrating, because that seems like a fairly unforced error, and perhaps a little bit indicative of them and their personality. But in terms of like, you know, I think that like, you know, founders do weird stuff with VCs economically as well, and some of that like it can be frustrating, but I think I kind of understand where everyone's coming from in the end.
Yeah, I guess money is like the center of it. Okay. Interesting. What are your do's and don'ts to founders in terms of building and maintaining a good relationship with their VCs?
Yeah, it's a hard question, because I think that there's you know, like the first thing is like if you need capital, right? That's the most important part. And so like you need like just go get capital, right? Like that, like so your business can continue running. And then like a second order, you know, like thing you can worry about is like exactly who are these people and are they supportive? And I think it takes I think so the first thing is like build a compelling business, because then you have the leverage to go pick who you get to work with and why. And then I think that once you've crossed that bar, you know, I think it's very hard for founders, because I think they get a lot of advice that the entirety of fundraising is like a very transactional process. And I think what's hard about it is like a lot of that advice is like rooted in sensible concepts of like driving, you know, like a better deal for their startup, which is their job. And so walking the line between doing that stuff which is like, feels tactically transactional and like actually trying to get to know people and understand where they're coming from and like how they think, can be at odds. But I would say try the latter, like you don't have to push everything so fast. You can spend time with people. You probably have more leverage than you want on the timeline if things are going well. And so like, kind of put them through the paces. It's more difficult because, I evaluate people all day, right? Like in that context, and founders are doing it like cyclically and without a lot of like, again, like horizontal context on like what it looks like to go bad or good or the like. But I think like you do have some sense of like who resonates with you, and so spending time with them, and then secondarily references. Talk to other founders.
Nice. You've been a founder. Is there anything that you've taken away from that experience and that you're applying now in terms of relationship building as a VC on the other side?
Sorry, I'm laughing because candidly, I was like a pretty poor relationship builder as a founder. I was like the CTO guy, just hacked all day and ran a team of engineers, and like, the good ones, like, like I could do basic engineering management pretty well, but it's fairly different from the kind of relationship building we're doing today. So, what is my answer to that? I think my learning is that I probably underweighted relationship management as a founder. So it's not like a tactical thing that I'm bringing with me, but I'm like, oh, in hindsight, I think founders should care more about it.
So did you have to learn relationship management as a VC?
Yeah.
Oh, is there a book for that? Or?
No, I mean, I had to learn like talking to people all day. I like the year before, I was like at home coding with my cat, and I was like, okay, now I have like a new meeting every hour. This will be interesting. I think I just picked it up on the job though, mostly.
So you went from being the CTO guy who's coding with your cat to I need to be the greatest relationship builder
exactly, yes.
of all times.
Go network.
Okay. My last question to you is, if a founder wants to get funding from you and build a great relationship with you, what bribe works the best?
I don't think I'm that bribable.
That's what they all say.
I don't think. I think there probably are hacks, but they're like, I don't think it's actually like bribes per se.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
On that note, I think we're out of time, but thank you so much for being here, Brett. Thank you guys for being here with us, and enjoy your conference.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.